half at 1374 3/4. May up 17 and a half at 1371 1/4, and July up 16 1/4 to close at 1358. January soybean meal up 6.80 a ton at 444.80. February live cattle down 50 cents at 114.47. April down 20 at 119.30. January feeders down 87 cents at 135.82. March down 75 at 136.82. February lean hogs down 42 cents at 68.70. April down 22 at 72.82. I'm Dwayne Murley.
Divine Intervention is online at yourfortdodge.com, on Twitter at JMike1400.
That's where we are, on Twitter at JMike1400. Also, you can see as well as hear what happens in the studio by just going to AM 1400 KVFD on Facebook or yourfortdodge.com. There's, of course, recordings of this program at those spots. YouTube, they're on the Alpha Media YouTube account, but I don't know it right off the top of my head. And if there's somebody you should know, it should be me, I guess, but I don't know. We're very pleased today to welcome back to the program Representative Ann Meyer. How you doing over there, Ann?
Hey, I'm doing great. It's good to see you.
You know, this is the second time today I've done this. I asked somebody, or I welcome them to the program, I ask how they're doing, and I don't turn their microphone on. I'm getting old. Maybe I should retire. I don't know.
It's kind of like a Zoom video when you start talking and your microphone's on mute.
There you go. Yeah. By the way, I was on Zoom the other day with Dave Price of WHO 13. He wanted to talk about, I've known Dave over the years, I mean, just more or less professionally, but he knew that I had COVID and wanted to talk about my experiences with COVID. And he told me that it would probably be on the evening news or on his Sunday morning program. Well, believe me, I've been in front of the TV, Channel 13, every night. And I haven't seen it yet, so it'll probably be on his Sunday morning. I can't remember.
When do I usually see Dave? The only time I see him is on Sunday mornings on TV.
Yeah.
That's it. I saw him the other night, obviously, there was a spectacle, but usually I don't see him during the week.
Oh, you mean the Washington, D.C. thing?
Yeah.
God, what can we say about that, really? I mean,
I think everyone's
insanity.
probably said enough.
Well, probably so. I mean, I don't see the sense in impeaching Donald Trump. That's millions of dollars we're going to spend, and the man's going to be in office another 11 or 12 days, so I don't...
You know, our country, our legislature really should be focusing on the problems that face the country and not inciting more political division through another impeachment process. That's, like you said, it's less than 2 weeks away. That's honestly, I just feel like that's ignorant.
Well, and we have these two political parties that act like the rest of us aren't even here, that the real thing is for them to be fighting with Republicans, fighting with Democrats, Democrats fighting with Republicans. You people just hang on and we'll tell you how it turns out. You know, that's insane. Democrats, of course, won big nationally, but not so much in Iowa. Iowa's turned into a pretty red state. I mean, we picked up in the House here in Iowa, we picked up how many seats?
Well, we had a 53 majority. We did lose Ashley Hinson's seat because she's now in Congress, but we picked up 7 more seats. So we have a 59 majority in the Iowa House now.
Sure. Who has Ashley Hinson's old seat? Is it a Democrat?
It's a Democrat.
Oh,
yeah, she was Cedar Rapids. I mean, she's Lynn County. She was Lynn County. And, Ashley was a great representative of that area, and but truthfully, she had a highly Democrat registration in that area. So
that district used to be one of the most Democratic in the state. Now it can go back and forth.
Well, the rest of the seats, I think most of the Democrat seats in Cedar Rapids were uncontested. So it's a lot like Johnson County and a few districts in Des Moines as well that don't have any opposition.
Really?
So, I know 2 of the freshmen they were uncontested by the Republican Party. I think one of them had an independent running against them, I think. But Elhert and Donahue out in Lynn County, you've got Joe Bolcom and all of the Johnson County Democrats. They didn't have opposition. So
it's a waste of time to run against Joe Bolcom in Iowa City.
And money. I mean,
a waste of time and money. When Tim Cranmer ran against Darrell Beal, of course, that was huge. I mean, the money spent by both parties. I can't even remember how much it was now, but $3 or $4 million for a state Senate seat in Iowa.
Right, right. Well, you know the money, and we talked about this way before the election. You knew the money that was being poured into the Iowa House races, just to because they were certain that they were going to flip the House blue, and obviously that didn't happen. And the money, I think people just really recognize that. Iowans are genuine, and I don't think they like that negativity, and they don't like other people coming in and trying to force their opinions on the state. And I'm happy with the results of the election.
Well, Scrappy Mike Sexton, I think, is mad at me because I was on the air saying I thought Joni Ernst would lose, and I was speaking with a little authority. She wasn't doing any local media at that time in the summer and early fall. I mean, she had a media campaign run from Washington, D.C., and they were focused on hammering away at the TV spots. Well, they were all negative spots.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And Joni was hardly back here either at that time. Well, I think she must have caught wind of something because Teresa Greenfield was everywhere in Iowa. And Joni Ernst showed up and pulled it out in the end. But because I said that on the air, Scrappy's been a little ticked at me.
You know what though? I think I'll push back on that because I do remember that Teresa Greenfield wasn't everywhere in Iowa. I mean, she was here for sure. She obviously wasn't working in the Senate, but I don't think she did make it everywhere. She made it here at Fort Dodge, but it certainly wasn't in all 99 county.
Wasn't an effort like that.
No.
Grassley still does that.
Yeah, he does.
All the years he's been down there, and at his age, like he's 84, 85 years old, something like that.
Yeah. You do know he had COVID.
Yeah.
And he is already back to running 2 miles a day.
That man's incredible. He didn't, he told me once in private that he didn't start running until he was 65 years old.
Yep.
And he's still at it now. I mean, when I first met him, he was a heavier man, I mean, he wasn't obese or anything by my standards. But once he started running, man, he's got the runner's body. I mean, even though he is in his 80s now.
Yeah. He's healthy as a horse, I would say.
So Pat Grassley is the new Speaker of the House. Yeah.
He is the Speaker. When Linda Upmeyer announced she was retiring at the end of 2019, at the end of this past legislative session, she stepped down at the end of 2019, and Pat Grassley ran for the spot against Chris Hagenow, who was the majority leader with Linda. And I mean, that was a tight race. That's just between our caucus, but it was a tight race, and Pat pulled it out. And I'll tell you what, with all the money that was poured into the state to flip the House, the leadership, Speaker Grassley is the one who decides where that money goes and how the races are won. All except mine. We had a little tiff about it, but we're very respectful of each other. But I give him total props because, like I said, we picked up 7 seats in the House.
But you would like to give him a beating for the whole thing, right?
Well, we just,
a little spat.
We just had a little
him over
spat.
the head with a baseball bat. But we worked it out, and I'm giving him props.
Honestly, they definitely they've been in politics for a long time, and they think that they know how races are run. And what I'm talking about.
Sure.
I'm not going to run a negative campaign,
No.
and that's always been my fight within my own party, that I'm not going to do that. If you only want me because I'm going to bash my opponent, you really don't want me.
Well, I don't think that happened in your race with Charles Clayton, and I don't think Clayton was coming at you either necessarily.
Oh, you had COVID.
Yes.
And I don't want to go into a big, long discussion about that
yes,
either.
I was
but
in the hospital.
there was a nasty TV campaign against me that were all negative ads every time I turned on the news. Yeah. And then the mailers, and I was very, very disappointed.
Well, that's because those party people in Des Moines still think they know how to run a race.
They do think they know how to run a race, but what people need to know is the candidates, they give you advice, but the candidates are in charge of their own race. So
that's the great thing about rural Iowa. We know who the candidates are.
Mm-hmm.
I know Charles Clayton. I mean, I know you, and I've known our representatives, all of them, over the years. And you can't run a television commercial and get me to change my mind about a candidate.
So going
For a local
forward,
office, anyway.
away from that last election, I am pleased to announce that it's not an announcement because I've talked to the messenger and everyone who'll listen. I am the chair of Human Resources
Get
this
out of
year.
town.
And I'm, so what Human Resources is, it's the health policy committee in the state. So we introduce and pass health policy for all Iowans. I'm also on the HHS budget, Health and Human Service budget. So everything we pass in the policy side, we pay for it with the HHS budget. So I'm really looking forward to working with my colleagues. We have a great team in our caucus on the committee. And then we also have a great team on the Democrat side of the committee. So we've got Representative Brown Powers, who I worked with last year and I really enjoy. She's a therapist out in Waterloo area. John Forbes, who's a pharmacist in the Des Moines area. So we have got a really good, I think we've got a really good Human Resources Committee. And I think I've told you, I mean, I talk about this before, but health policy is not, it's not really, if it is, it shouldn't be, but it's not really a party driven. We're here to help all Iowans. We're here to pass good health policy to make sure Iowans can live their best lives as far as health.
Well, I will say that Governor Reynolds got into a real slugging match with the Democrats over the privatization of Medicaid. And that still stings in some quarters. Some would say that's a political decision. Do you support Governor Reynolds' decision on the privatization of Medicaid?
I am glad you brought that up.
All right.
That was not Governor Reynolds' decision. That was the last thing Governor Branstad did before he left, was privatize Medicaid, and he did it all at once. So some states that have privatized, most states are private. Their Medicaid programs are private, but they had some carve-outs, and they didn't do it all at once. Iowa did it all at once, and we did run into some glitches.
Yes, I heard from some doctors in town.
Yep, and right now we have 2 Medicaid providers. I would like you to know that, number one, 24% of all Iowans are covered by the Medicaid program, whether it's the MCOs, the fee-for-service, or Hawkeye program. That is 1/4 of our population, over 770,000. This year, we had obviously the pandemic, but also in August, we had the derecho, which swept through the center of the state.
Oh, yeah.
People were without electricity for 2 weeks. And you and I may think that that's inconvenient for sure. We're hot. We don't have air conditioning. Your food, we might have lost a fridge of food. We've got people, our Medicaid members, who lost all of their food. In addition, they didn't have electricity, which if you have oxygen, you need electricity. If you're on a home ventilator, you need a generator to get that going. If you're on medication that needs to be in the refrigerator, you need that. Again, a generator, you need some refrigeration source. Our 2 MCOs, AmeriGroup and Iowa Total Care, they reached out to every single member in that area. They made sure they, first of all, knew they were okay. And then they made sure they had refrigeration for their medications. They made sure they had the medications they needed, because there were transportation issues in some of these areas where the streets were impassable, the stores were not open. These are things that if the state of Iowa was still covering Medicaid, there is no way those things could have been addressed. But these 2 companies worked together. They put in a lot of community service, and they went over and above to make sure those Iowans were covered. I know we didn't get too much. We didn't get any effect up here in Webster County from the derecho, but there were many, many people affected.
No, my
and
son
it's
lives
working.
my son lives in the Cedar Rapids area. A tree fell on his house.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And that's a common story. I've heard that over and
Yeah.
over and over.
I was down there about 2 weeks after the storm. I don't know, 3 weeks maybe, and I was just astonished. I mean, Cedar Rapids was wrecked. I mean, there was trees ripped from the ground, and it was really something to see. It was a terrible storm. I never even heard of a derecho.
So now going back to Webster County, I've had constituents reach out to me, Medicaid members. They have specifically had bad issues. If you're a Medicaid member and you're having an issue, reach out to me. We can fix those problems. I know I say this over and over, and people do reach out to me, and I'm thankful for that. And we are able to navigate those issues. I have a constituent in town who has a daughter down in Des Moines. She's having issues. The parents have come to me, and we're working on her problems too. We're here to fix the issues that are in Medicaid. The providers have reached out to me several times, and we're working on we have been able to solve most of their issues. I think there was one eyeglass issue that one of our providers is still not content with, and we're going to go forward looking on that. That's a policy within the MCOs that we're going to work on.
But of course, the big story today, Ann, is that Harbaugh has re-signed with Michigan, right?
Yep. And so I'm going to read you a funny text because,
from a Michigan fan that you know.
Yes.
All right.
So the love of my life.
There
He
you
said Harbaugh signed a contract extension with U of M. I told my buddies that Harbaugh is our coach now, and Biden's our president-elect, and we must support our leaders.
Well, that's the truth. That's absolutely the truth.
So Michigan still has hopes of a good football season.
Well, I hope they do. This is AM 1400 KBFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Our guest, Representative Ann Meyer. Of course, I'm still shocked by the death of Pastor Al Henderson. Are we making any progress on getting help or finding some resolution for people like the man accused of killing Pastor Henderson?
Well, I'll talk about the structure here in Webster County, which I'm sure you might be aware of, but you might have missed that during COVID as well.
I missed a lot of things, that's for sure.
We are no longer going to be in the county social services, mental health and disability service district region
That we have been in, even
Yes.
that big monstrous 22
exactly
county
from Pocahontas to the Mississippi
Waterloo,
River.
to the
Yeah, Waterloo, right? No, Mississippi River.
Mississippi.
So, and Mark could tell you more specific. Mark Campbell could tell you more specifics about this. And you know what? I know I say this every time, but there can't be a better person to work with in the county as far as mental health goes than Mark. And that's not
Mark's
his
a good guy.
background. That's not his background. He's threw himself into it. We work together to facilitate legislation. We're going to be in CSIS, which is a different region that is actually working, that has actually been functioning much better than county social services. And they put in their letter of intent to leave. And I'm not really sure if it's January that we hook up with CSIS. But all of our reserve funds, Webster County, your tax dollars, will be following Webster County to the new region. And that's important because we want to go there with that money to fund the region, but also access the services. I'm not sure, and you know what, I should know this. I'm not sure if there is an access center in CSIS, which is Hamilton, Franklin, Ames, Boone, and
Does it get to
goes
Ames?
down to Green, Jefferson, I believe as well. Yeah, it does get to Ames. But they have had a functional the treatment team that goes out if there's an emergency. So a 2 or 3 person treatment team. If someone's having a mental health emergency at home, we don't want to, number one, send them to the emergency room or the jail if we can de-escalate that at home. And then we can direct those people that respond to that emergency can direct them to proper services.
Do we have services available for somebody who is in, as you medical people say, acute distress, who's having a major breakdown? What do we do with them? We can't de-escalate it at home.
No,
it's not a law enforcement problem. The person is literally losing their mind. Is there a place that they can go?
It's still, at this point, we're still going to emergency rooms. We are working with federal delegation. There are a few things that need to be done. We need to have we do need to have an inpatient, not just an access center that's 2 or 3 day treatment. We need to have. You've heard of people sitting in the emergency room, sitting in the ICU for days, weeks.
Yes, I've heard some terrible stories.
Because there are just no beds all over the state. We need extra beds in the state, bottom line. There are a few ways we can accomplish that. And I've already talked to our new federal delegation about that going into 2021, how we can facilitate that. We also know that on a state level, we need to increase provider rates.
Ann Meyer's been our guest. Thank you, Ann.
Okay.
4 o'clock sports show coming up. This is KVFD Fort Dodge, Iowa.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.